Ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, friends, family, and everybody else, it's a great pleasure to be with you today on the latest edition of Real Talk with Billy and Cory, live from our homes in Zoom University. Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Hot Take Billy Parvatam on hand, joined by my podcast partner, Uncle Cornelius Michael. Some people call him Cory Van Dyke. Cory, it's great to be back with you for another one on Zoom, our first one in 2022.
Yeah, 2022 is here and the NFL playoffs are here. Can't wait to dive into it. Take a look at me and your preseason predictions, see how they held up going into the playoffs, and then really dive into see if we want to change those, and I'll edit those going into the full playoffs going on now.
And today, of course, we have a very special guest, as always. For the first time on the podcast is none other than Mr. Ryan Johns from Richmond, Virginia. Ryan graduated from Virginia Tech in 2019. And he's also in the same fantasy football league as me and Cory. He's won 2 out of the last 3 years, so he's got to chill. You know, he's got a monopoly on winning the fantasy championship. So we'll talk to him about fantasy as well. But Ryan, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I kind of figured the only reason you invited me was to figure out my fantasy secrets, but I'll talk playoffs too.
Yeah, for sure. We will get to Ryan's fantasy secrets later, but let's get right to it, boys. The NFL playoffs is here after the first year of 17 regular season games. We had a lot of different storylines, but finally the playoffs are here, and we're excited to see what happens. Of course, before we make our predictions, I will go into the preseason picks that me and Cory made before the season started. But first, before we talk about the playoffs, guys, and just reflecting about this whole season, Cory, I'll go to you first. Is there like one storyline you thought that was the best storyline, or maybe a storyline you thought, man, this is really interesting? I mean, what stands out to you about this season?
I think more than anything, it's just that there is not that, the one kind of standout team that's going in there. So maybe you could say the Packers a little bit, but even they have a lot of weaknesses. I think just the parity that there is going into this playoffs is kind of incredible. I think you can make an argument for 7, 8 different teams to win it all. Obviously, we're going to get into that in a little bit, but I think that's been a huge storyline, just the parity throughout the league this year. The Chiefs have kind of had a monopoly in the AFC the last couple of years, and even, the Titans beat them out this year for the 1 seed, different things like that. Even, how about that? Even the Titans and Vrabel, Derrick Henry's out most of the year. Tannehill kind of doesn't even put up great stats. Their offense wasn't the juggernaut that it even was last year, and they still get the 1 seed in the AFC. I think that's an incredible storyline as well. So I think more than anything, yeah, it's just the parity that has run across the NFL this year. The Bucs Super Bowl champions, they didn't even get the 1 seed in their conference either. So it's really anyone's game at this point.
Ryan, anything stand out to you, whether it's a team, whether it's a player, whether it's something that happened off the field that really stands out to you about this NFL season?
I will say, I think the Eagles, surprised all of us, coming in from last year, fire their coach, ship Carson Wentz to Indiana. Like, let's see what he can do, start over with Jalen Hurts, hit the reset button. Like, they even traded a lot of their draft capital. So really just kind of punting this year. And, somehow with Sirianni, they were, able to rattle off 9 wins and, make it into the playoffs. And, best of luck against the Bucs. But I think that's pretty incredible that they can even like get in there.
Yeah, for me, guys, I got one name, Tom Brady, at 44 years old. This man, I mean, in my opinion, he's the MVP. Look at the stats comparing him and Aaron Rodgers. He's got more 4 touchdown touchdown pass games. He's got more 350-yard games. Touchdown passes, they're about even. I just think what he continues to do is incredible at 44 years old. I mean, we see guys like Ben Roethlisberger, who's 38, 39. He's breaking down. It seems like Tom Brady's able to just keep Father Time away for a little bit longer. And even with all the, receivers that he lost, like Antonio Brown and Mike Evans was banged up, Leonard Fournette's banged up, Chris Godwin out for the season, he's still able to lead the Bucs to a division title, which they actually didn't do last year. If you remember, the Saints not only swept them, but won the division last year, but Brady's able to lead the Bucs to the NFC South title, and they've got a good chance to make another run here at the Super Bowl. So really a very interesting season, guys. Let's now move to the playoffs again. They start this Saturday. It's actually the Super Wild Card weekend for the first time because you got games on Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Cory, before we talk about the playoffs, I went back, as I'm sure you did, and watched our preseason predictions for the NFL playoffs, which we did with Shamar, who's also in our fantasy league at the beginning of the season. If I got my math right, I think both of us got 7 out of 8 division winners correct. I mean, you had the Bills, the Chiefs, the Titans. Your one team that was wrong in the AFC was the Browns. I had the same three teams, and then I also had the Ravens winning the AFC North. So we both got the AFC North wrong. In the NFC division, let's see here. I believe you had all four. Yeah, you did. You had all four NFC division winners, right? You had the Bucks, Packers, Rams, and Cowboys. As for me, I had 3 out of the 4, and then of course I was spectacularly wrong with the Washington football team winning the division. And really quick here, I'll go through some of the other predictions. My AFC wildcard teams were Colts, Browns, and Patriots, so I had 2 out of 3. Your AFC wildcard teams were Ravens, Patriots, Colts, so you had 1 out of 3 because shout out to the Colts losing to the Jags, the worst team in the league, to miss the playoffs at the end of the season. My NFC wildcard teams were Seahawks, 49ers, and Saints. You actually also had the same 3 teams, so we were both 1 for 3 on that. And then in the AFC title game, you had Chiefs over Browns. Browns, of course, did not make the playoffs.
Yes.
I had the Chiefs over Ravens. The Ravens did not make the playoffs. So, again, we both picked half our AFC title game to make the playoffs. Your NFC title game, you had Rams over Packers. I was, again, epically wrong. I had Packers over the Washington football team.
Oh, no.
Your Super Bowl pick. Yeah, that was pretty bad. Yeah, I said it as I was laughing too, so I didn't even really believe it at the time. But Cory, you had, I believe, Chiefs over Rams as your Super Bowl champion, and I have the Packers over the Chiefs. So, going into the playoffs with our preseason predictions, we still have our Super Bowl intact. So we'll see if we end up sticking with that. Ryan, I guess before we make our predictions, any team that you thought that made it that you were kind of surprised by? I mean, again, we had teams like the Eagles make it, for example, with Jalen Hurts. We didn't expect that. I mean, is there one team that you were really surprised by, not even making the playoffs, but they just had such a great season?
I think you can immediately say the Saints. You kind of talked about them earlier and how, the Saints won the division against the Bucks last year, but they also had Drew Brees, right? Or we're not that far removed from him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I just crazy? Yeah, you have Drew Brees, you get rid of him, you start Jameis Winston, and then he blows his ACL. And honestly, I think the Saints look pretty good this year with Jameis Winston. I mean, I wouldn't say a top team, but I think they look serviceable with him. And then starting from Ian Brook, was that his name? Ian Book. Starting Taysom Hill, just starting whoever's just, I don't know, on the street corner for QB, and still managing to, they were very alive until this last week when who was it that had to win that
49ers knocked them out by winning against the Rams.
Yeah, but I think it's pretty amazing that they were alive right there. And also I think the Steelers, even this past week, I don't think any of us even thought they'd make it in. I was even just all right, the Ravens will take care of them, or the Colts won't lose to the Jags, right? The statistics say that the Jags have beat the Colts the last 6 times at home, or 5 times this coming weekend. And seeing that, I was nah, there's no way this happens again. So those are my big surprises.
All right, guys. Well, let's finally put our money where our mouth is and make these playoff predictions. So the way I was going about it is we'll first go through the AFC and pick their wild card round. Then we'll go to the NFC. Then we'll switch back to the divisional round for both conferences, and then go from there. And so if you guys can also help me out here and keep track of your picks, because the way the NFL playoffs works is the lowest remaining seed will play the team with the bye in the divisional round. So depending on who we pick to win our matchups, we may have different matchups in the divisional round and of course the conference championship game. So everyone, of course, keep track of your picks, guys. But let's go to the AFC. We have the Raiders and the Bengals. We all remember the Raiders escaping, decided not to play for the tie. They end up beating the Chargers, so they make the playoffs and end up playing at Cincinnati instead of the Chiefs. Well, you've got the Raiders over the Bengals. The spread right now, according to Bovada, which I have pulled up here, is -5.5 for the Bengals. Obviously, a lot of great storylines for both of these teams. Cory, who do you have winning this game?
I have the Bengals. I think, Joe Burrow and the emergent, that's another team we could look at, with how they've come on this year. Jamar Chase going to win Rookie of the Year. I think he's already a top 5 receiver in the NFL. As a rookie this year, and just that offense and how dynamic they are. I think, the Raiders will have a hard time stopping. I would take the Bengals to win this game. I would take them to cover it as well. I think they win by a touchdown or more.
Ryan, who do you think will win this game? And of course, if you look at the Raiders, I mean, what a great story, even just get to the playoffs. I mean, we all know what happened with John Gruden. Rick Bisaccio steps in and is able to really lead this team to some gutty wins late in the season. Of course, they beat the Chargers to get into the playoffs and was one of the best regular season games I've ever seen. So, of course, so many storylines for them coming in this playoffs. But who do you think ultimately wins this game?
Yeah, so I'm actually going on the other side. I think the Bengals definitely are favored for a reason, and they definitely have a chance to win this game. But even if you look at, I think it was week 11 earlier in the year when they played them. I think up until the third quarter, like the Raiders and the Bengals played like a very close game, and it looked like the Raiders had a lot of answers for a lot of like what the Bengals were trying to do offensively. And I think just the combination of playoff jitters and just the Raiders being able to just play like literally with house money. They're just so open, they're ecstatic to even just have like a positive record. At this point, Derek Carr just wants to get out there, throw the pigskin. They're just kind of looking to next year. And if they get a win or two, or even pull in a Super Bowl, which I'm not picking the Raiders to win the Super Bowl, I don't think anyone will. It's, only joy from here. So I think I'm picking the Raiders money line in this game.
I am also going with the Las Vegas Raiders to beat the Bengals. I just think, Joe Burrow, it's not his rookie season, but it is his first time in the playoffs. He's going to have jitters, like Ryan said. Derek Carr is a man on the mission. People were talking about before the season, the Raiders might have to trade him or they might have to move off him. And people forget when the Raiders were good a couple years ago, he actually got hurt and wasn't able to play in the playoff game. I think he's motivated. He's going to win this playoff game, and I'm going with Oakland here to upset the Bengals. So me and Ryan both go with the Raiders. Corey is going with the Bengals. Let's now go to our next game. We've got Chiefs and Steelers. Of course, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs trying to make it back to the third straight Super Bowl. Ben Roethlisberger playing in his final season. They made the playoffs because the Raiders beat the Chargers. They did not tie those two teams. So Steelers were able to sneak in. And of course, if you look at a guy like Ben Roethlisberger, really an interesting season. I mean, the Steelers lost a lot of close games, but they were able to sweep both the Ravens and the Browns to make it to the playoffs. Corey, will this be Ben Roethlisberger's last game, or do you think they can pull off a monumental upset?
Yeah, I think this is the end of Big Ben's career, unless he pulls a Brett Favre and has some kind of comebacks, later on down the road. But I think, you look at the Steelers offense, like they have all these weapons. They just don't seem to put up points. I don't know how they're going to score, more than 14 on this Chiefs team. And, Patrick Mahomes will surely put up more than 2 touchdowns. So I think the Chiefs roll in this one easily. You saw them play a couple weeks ago, and Chiefs absolutely dominated that game from start to finish. I'm going to take the Chiefs here to win big.
Yeah, the Chiefs spread, by the way, is -13. Ryan, how about you? Who wins between KC and Pitt?
I looked over this game and I really, tried to get cute thinking, okay, TJ Watt tying Michael Straham's record, this can't happen. The Chiefs are favored by 13. I'm not going to bet on them to cover, but I just don't even see them not covering at this point because the Chiefs are just not much better than the Steelers.
Yeah, I'm going with the Chiefs. I mean, if you look at Big Ben Roethlisberger, he's a Hall of Famer, but he just can't move out there on the field anymore. I mean, and I know this because I've personally lost by betting on him. I mean, Deontay Johnson is Deontay drops. That man drops 3 out of 4 catches that are thrown, targets that are thrown to him. I mean, you just can't rely on the Steeler offense. They just had trouble moving the ball. And honestly, I think if you look at their division, the AFC North was not as good this year as was expected with the Ravens losing Lamar for a good chunk of the season. The Browns taking a step back with Baker Mayfield. So I'm going the Chiefs big. I think they will cover. They will cover -13. So we all agree that the Chiefs will beat the Steelers. Sorry, Big Ben. Looks like retirement is coming. Maybe this might be the best game of the weekend when you talk about 2 divisional rivals here, Patriots and Bills. Guys, of course, we all remember that Monday night game when Mac Jones threw 3 passes and the Patriots still ended up winning the game. The Bills ended up beating the Patriots in New England. So the 2 teams split the series. Might be the best game of the weekend. Corey, who do you have winning this matchup?
Yeah, this is going to be my first somewhat upset. I'm going to take the Patriots to win it here. I think the combination of that defense, come January football, playoff football, and what they can do out there. Belichick, best coach in the game. He's proven it time and time again that he's, has a rookie quarterback out there as a game manager and still was one win away from winning the division this year. I think something weird, something crazy happens in this game. Josh Allen has one of those, escapes 3 sacks and throws the ball up and it gets pick 6 or something like that. Something whack. This is going to be the game where there's some kind of controversy or something like that, I think it goes the way of the Patriots. They win this game, and then, by default would cover that as well.
Yeah, Ryan, I mean, the Patriots at one point were the number one seed in the AFC. People thought they may make a run to the Super Bowl. The Bills, on the other hand, we thought they were the heir apparent to the Chiefs, but they struggled at times this season, losing to a team like the Jags. The line right now is -4 Bills. So who do you say wins this game?
So I don't think the line's fair, to be honest. I really think it should be pretty even, because I think anything can happen in this game. I really flip-flop several times picking, because, it is hard to bet against Bill Belichick, and, never knowing what he has up his sleeve and just their special teams and how well they always play. But I'm actually going to take Josh Allen. If you've kind of watched him later in the year, you've seen them, use a little bit more like run pass option with him, using his legs a little bit more. And I think when Josh Allen's running well, it's hard to stop them. I mean, you look at last year, they looked like they were rolling, and I just think they kind of get back into form. They're used to the playoffs. Josh Allen's gonna show why he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league this year.
And I'm gonna go with the New England Patriots to upset the Bills. I just think this is going to be one of those games. You got the greatest coach of all time on one sideline playing chess with, Josh Allen. I just think, I'm not going to say Mac Jones is going to throw 3 passes again, but I think the Patriots are going to be able to control the running game with Damian Harris and Brandon Bolden in their backfield, Ramondre Stevenson, and I think they're going to be able to win a low-scoring game. I think the Bills will not score as many points as some people are predicting. So I am going with the Patriots in an upset here. So for that one, both me and Cory picked the Patriots. Ryan picks the Bills to win that game at home. We will come back to the wild card, the divisional round for the AFC in a second, but let's now move to the wild card round in the NFC for this portion of the podcast. First matchup we'll talk about is the NFC West divisional, wild card round matchup. You've got the Rams and the Cardinals. Guys, it seems like both of these teams are kind of reeling to end the season. The Rams lost to the 49ers in overtime, and the Cardinals, after starting out like 8-0, have really kind of not been the same team they were to start the season. So Cory, really kind of seems like a pick'em game almost. If you look at the spread, according to Bovada, it is -4 Rams. So who do you have winning this game? Rams were in your Super Bowl, as we talked about in your preseason prediction.
Yeah, I'm gonna have the Rams advancing. I've called the Cardinals all year long the biggest fraud team in the NFL. The fact that they were the 1 seed at one point, and what was it, 9-1, 10-1, or whatever. I even said it then. I think they were the worst. I think I texted you guys. They're the worst 10-1 team of all time. And sure enough, they've shown that down the stretch. Kyler Murray can't stay healthy. He's a small guy that gets banged up as the season goes on. That's shown throughout this year as well. I think the Rams and Aaron Donald and that defense will beat them up. Von Miller even has really come on down the stretch a little bit for that Rams defense. I think they do enough to get it done in advance.
Yeah, Ryan, the Cardinals, of course, are missing their best receiver, DeAndre Hopkins. He's out for the season. Rams, you've got Matt Stafford trying to win his first playoff game. So even though it's his first year with the Rams, he's got a lot to prove as well. Who do you have winning this game?
Yeah, I think there's a path for the Cardinals to win this game, but without DeAndre Hopkins, I think that would just be too difficult. You have JJ Watt coming back somehow again from a, seemingly season-ending injury. And, I think Kyler at times has just been a magician, but, I think the Rams not only cover, but I'll take them by a touchdown. I think this game could get ugly. And, I think Stafford will give us reasons to doubt him later this playoffs, but I think this game he gets it done and puts that to rest for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm also going with the Rams as well. For one name only, they got the best receiver in the league, Cooper Kupp. Ryan knows all about that because he had him on his fantasy team. I think the Rams are going to tear up the Cardinals. I'm not confident on the Rams either, but I think against a team like the Cardinals, who again will not have their best weapon in D-Hop, I think they're able to get it done here. And both those teams split, of course, their regular season series. So it'll be interesting to see who win this game. I am going with the Rams as well. So we all agree that LA will advance to the divisional round. Let's now go to the Bucs and Eagles. They'll be playing Sunday afternoon. I'm just going to be honest, guys. I'll go to you first, Cory. I would be shocked if anyone here picks the Eagles.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Tom Brady and the Bucs to march forward. I will have the Eagles cover, though. I think, what was the line, like 12, 11.5 or something like that?
7?
I have an 8.5 on Bovada, but yeah, right around there.
Okay. I mean, I would still take the I think they'll keep it closer than expected. Maybe Jalen Hurts will have a backdoor cover at the end or something like that. He's been known to do that down the stretch, have those little halves. But yeah, I'm gonna take the Bucs to advance, though. I think Tom Brady in the playoffs, as the 2 seed against the 7 seed, you'd be hard pressed to pick against playoff Tom here.
Ryan, Bucks or Eagles?
Yeah, and I really overthought this pick so hard. The Eagles winning 7 of their last 9 games, coming in hot into the playoffs. They basically had a bye week last week, just doing whatever they were doing, and coming in here, and I'll tell you one reason the Bucks win, and that's Vita Vea. I think that the Eagles, big strength is running the ball, and I don't see them doing that this weekend.
I'm also going with the Bucks. I mean, you got to give credit to the Eagles. Jalen Hurts, got to give credit to our friend Shamar. I mean, he said Jalen Hurts was going to be a really good player. I didn't believe it, and he went out there and had a pretty good season for the Eagles. But I mean, Tom, terrific in the playoffs, even without AB, even without Chris Godwin. I think he's able to at least get past the Eagles. So I am picking the Bucks as well. Let's now go to our final wild card matchup. This is Cory's favorite because it involves his favorite team, the Cowboys playing the 49ers. I think the old NFL fans will think about the matchups these two teams had in the 90s with Michael Irvin and Jerry Rice and so many Hall of Famers. Cory, will your Cowboys defeat the 49ers? And really quick, I do want to say this stat really quick because I didn't even know until I saw this. The Cowboys were, I believe, 12-5 on the year. They were 6-0 against their division and 6-5 against everyone else. So I think the numbers say something about them. But Cory, I'll go to you. Do you think the Cowboys win this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think going into week 18, I didn't even think it was a possibility. It wasn't even on my radar that, the 49ers could potentially be a matchup. It was either, in my mind, going to be the Rams or the Cardinals. So this was kind of a surprise matchup that I've suddenly had to rack my brain around. But I think the Cowboys do get it done, and I'll give you one reason why. Because Jimmy G is the opposing quarterback, and Jimmy G is not an NFL playoff caliber quarterback. I think late in the game, it'll be him going down for a drive to potentially win the game. The Cowboys defense, what they've done all year is bend but don't break, get a turnover right when they need it. I think that's what they'll do is get a turnover late. Either Randy Gregory or DeMarcus Lawrence coming off the edge will strip sack or have him, throw a contested pass. And I think the Cowboys, Dak will do enough to get to score on that 49ers defense. Cowboys will do just enough to come out with the win in that game.
All right, Ryan, like I said, the line here is +3 for the 49ers. I think that's a great line personally, but who do you think wins this game?
It's that's always just kind of a pick 'em line. I think the Cowboys really got unlucky here drawing the 49ers because I think, like Cory was saying earlier, a lot of those other teams, I think the Cowboys would have cleared pretty easily. I think they're just honestly a bad matchup for the Cowboys. What the 49ers want to do is run the ball. They want to run it with anyone, including Deebo Samuel. And I think they're able to just kind of run past them on the ground, racking up maybe 150 yards on the ground. And, I think that's enough for them to get it done.
I will go with the upset here, and I'm picking the San Francisco 49ers to beat the Cowboys. Like I said, I'm saying this as a Washington fan. Like, the Cowboys are frauds. They play in the worst division in football. They had 6 easy wins there. Look, I'm not going to be mad about someone. You always got to respect the team scoring 50, but they scored 50 twice on Washington, who's trash, and then the Eagles backups. Let's just keep it real here. Who they scored 50 on? I'm going with the 49ers to get the upset here. And main reason for me is if you look at the schedule, some of these games that they lost were not by that much. The Packers, who many people would argue the best team in the league, they lost by 2. They lost to the Seahawks by 7, lost to the Cardinals by 7. They lost to the Titans by 3. And those are all playoff teams for the most part. The Niners have played it tough against some of these teams, and they were 10-7, so they easily could honestly be at a better record than they were currently. So I'm going with the 49ers to get the upset here. So Cory and Ryan going with Dallas. I am going with the San Francisco 49ers. So this is where, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to have to keep track of who's playing who because, again, with the NFL playoffs, the lowest remaining seed plays the team with the bye. Again, remember this year only the number 1 seed gets the bye. That's a change from previous years. So Cory, I'll go to you first. Who did you have in your AFC divisional matchups? And then go ahead and predict who will advance to the conference championship game.
Yeah, so my first one would be, would be Patriots against the Titans. Patriots would be the lowest seed I have left. And In that matchup, I would have the Titans advancing. I think that would be an extremely low scoring game. That would be a game you look at it. It would be, again, Vrabel against Belichick. And we saw that showdown a couple of years ago where Vrabel used that tactic where he was able to run like 3-4 minutes off the clock with that loophole that was going on there. I think, with Derrick Henry back now, with Ryan Tannehill making just enough plays, I think the Titans would advance in that one. And then my other matchup would then be the Chiefs versus the Bengals. In that game, it would be a matchup of what we just saw 2 weeks ago where the Bengals won that game against the Chiefs. But I would have the Chiefs getting revenge in this one at home in Arrowhead in January. I think Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, he has the experience that Burrow doesn't have. I'd have the Chiefs advancing for an AFC championship with the Titans versus the Chiefs.
All right, Ryan. So like we were talking about, tell us about your divisional round matchups in the AFC and who do you have advancing to the AFC championship game?
So I have the Titans playing the Raiders, and I think the Raiders game is kind of a toss-up, but I think the Titans take care of whoever they see here pretty easily. Like you alluded to earlier, you've got Derrick Henry back, who's just back from hurting himself because he's just too strong. And in the part of the year where defensive linemen just don't want to hit it, just tank. You've got this guy who's just going to grind the clock out for you, and they managed to be the number 1 seed in the AFC without their best players. So I think with Derrick Henry back, they're serious title contenders. And then I also have the Chiefs and the Bills. I think the Bills actually are going to take care of the Chiefs in Arrowhead. Last year you had I forget the score, but I know the Bills were up by at least 10 points. One of you guys can correct me, but I think kind of playoff jitters kind of gotten their minds and just really like messed them up. And I think with maybe a little bit of luck and maybe a pick six in the right spot, I think the Bills take the Chiefs out here.
All right, so Ryan going with some interesting picks there. For my matchups, guys, I had Titans and Patriots and Chiefs and Raiders. I'm going with the Titans over the Patriots. I think, again, Derrick Henry coming back, having that extra week off is actually going to help him get prepared. Titans are going to control the game. And Ryan Tannehill, say what you want about him. He's not an elite quarterback, but he's able to get the job done, a solid game manager. I think Mac Jones is going to get the jitters here. If he's lucky enough to advance past the Bills, I'm going to pick the Titans to win that matchup. And then my other matchup was a rematch of the AFC West divisional rivalry with the Chiefs and the Raiders. I'm going with the Chiefs. The only thing I got to say is they played twice this year, and the Chiefs destroyed them both times. First matchup was 48-9 Chiefs, and the second matchup was 41-14 Chiefs. They're going to blow them out again. I'm going with the Chiefs and the Titans to advance to the AFC championship game. So, Corey, if I'm not mistaken, you also had Chiefs and Titans. Mm-hmm. And Ryan, remind me of your AFC championship matchup.
The Titans and the Bills.
All right, so we all have the Titans and then the Chiefs or the Bills in our AFC championship game. Let's now go to the NFC divisional round. So, Corey, who are your matchups and who do you have advancing to the NFC title game?
Yeah, so my first one would be the Packers versus the Rams in that matchup. And this would be the Rams with that bye would be matched up here against, the Packers with that bye would be matched up against the Rams here. I'm going to stick true to my prediction, have the Rams advance at least in this one as well with an upset here. I think the Packers, they've won these games down the stretch, other than the game where they played Jordan Love in the second half last week. But they've won these close games down the stretch against the Ravens where Huntley almost led the comeback against them, against the Browns where Baker Mayfield had all those interceptions. They were fortunate to win those games. I think their fortunes run out in a playoff game where a special teams mistake, where their defense gives up some big plays to Cooper Kupp. I think Matt Stafford makes just enough plays and Aaron Rodgers can't bail out his defense or his special teams one more time. I think the Rams pull off the upset to advance to the NFC Championship. Then I have the Cowboys versus the Bucs. What a matchup. That would be a rematch of week one where the Cowboys took the lead late and then the Suck-Up had the game-winning field goal to win it for the Bucs. Without Chris Godwin and with the Bucs a little banged up, I am going to take my Cowboys to advance in this one. I think Dak Prescott goes on the road. He lights up that defense like he did in week one. The offense comes out to play. They make just enough pressure on Tom Brady to get it done, and the Cowboys advance to the NFC Championship.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to Cory, opening night, I mean, that was a 31-29 victory for the Bucs. Tom Brady had to lead Tampa down for a game-winning field goal to escape that game. So to be fair to Cory, the Cowboys did play the Bucs tough when the Bucs had everybody. So that would certainly be an interesting matchup if it were to happen. So Cory has the Rams and the Cowboys in the NFC Championship game. Ryan, who are your NFC divisional round matchups, and who do you have advancing to the NFC title game?
So my first game would be the Packer Nation and the 49ers. And, I think, like Cory said, the Packers special teams is definitely being a suspect, and Aaron Rodgers has had to do, frankly, a lot to kind of bail them out. But, I think there's enough of a gap between the 49ers and the Packers that I just think Aaron Rodgers gets it done, and they win, maybe not by a lot, but they win comfortably to where no one's fighting nails at the end of the game. My second matchup is the Rams and the Bucs. And, I kind of like anyone to beat the Bucs here. I think the Bucs are just kind of limping into the playoffs. And, I think the Rams get it done here.
All right. So actually, me and Ryan had the same exact divisional round matchups in the NFC. I also have the Bucs and the Rams. I'm going with the Bucs for the simple reason of I just have to see it to believe it with Matt Stafford. He has not won a playoff game. He's only been to one playoffs. Now, to be fair, he's with the Lions for many years, and we all know how trash they are. But I just think Tom Brady, even with not having Chris Godwin and maybe some of his other players being banged up, I think he's able to at least get it done against the Rams. They actually did play each other in the regular season. The Rams won that matchup, and we all know what happened last year when the Bucs lost to the Saints twice. They beat them in the playoffs. So I think a second time around, Tom Brady's going to know how to match up with the Rams. I think Tampa will beat LA. And then my other matchup was, again, Packers and 49ers. Actually, a rematch of the NFC title game a few years ago when the 49ers beat the Packers to make the Super Bowl. I'm going with Aaron Rodgers, that bad man, to advance in the playoffs. One name, Devontae Adams. I mean, if it's not Cooper Kupp, I think you'd have a hard press to say anyone's better than Devontae Adams. I think he's going to go off here on the Rams and have a big game. And I'm going with Green Bay to advance to the NFC title game for the fourth year in a row, which is pretty incredible. I mean, Tom Brady did it 9 times. So for the Packers to do it 4 years in a row is pretty incredible. So let's now go to the AFC title game. So Cory, you and I both had the Chiefs and the Titans. Ryan had the Bills and the Titans. So Cory, who do you have winning between Kansas City and Tennessee?
Yeah, in a game that would be in Tennessee, which would be a little something. This would be a rematch of the AFC Championship 2 years ago. I would have the Chiefs winning, just like they did those few years back. And I think you look at all they have. You look at the Titans get the 1 seed this year, but you just match them weapon for weapon. Kind of player across player. I think the Chiefs have the advantage in almost every spot. Mahomes, his resume speaks for itself. You have Tyreek Hill, as long as he's healthy. That's kind of the one question mark I have with the Chiefs. He's a little banged up at the end of the season. If he's 100% healthy and he's rolling like Tyreek Hill knows how to roll out there, I think it's going to be hard pressed for anyone to stop that Chiefs offense and all that they can do, despite the downward turn that they had at the beginning of the year, where people were questioning if Mahomes was broke and if that offense was broke. They turned it up down the stretch. Really looked like that team that they have all these years. I think they continue to show that they're a team with the mettle, with the playoff intensity that knows how to get it done. I think the Chiefs and Andy Reid lead them to another AFC Championship win.
I also have the Chiefs and Titans, so I'll go here with my pick. I am going with the Chiefs to make it back to their 3rd straight Super Bowl. You look back to that regular season game. I mean, people forget when the Chiefs were, sliding. They lost to the Titans 27-3. I think this time around, Andy Reid's going to make the adjustments. Patrick Mahomes versus Ryan Tannehill. This would also actually be a rematch of an AFC title game a few years ago when the Chiefs beat the Titans to actually make the Super Bowl against the 49ers. I just think, especially if the Chiefs are able to go ahead early, that might prevent the Titans from being able to run the ball with the balanced offense like they would with Derrick Henry. So I'm going with the Chiefs to make it back to the Super Bowl for a 3rd year in a row. So both Cory and I agree the Chiefs would beat the Titans in our AFC title game. Ryan, you have a different matchup. You have the Titans, but they're playing the Bills. Who would win that matchup?
And I honestly, like, looking now, I almost wish that I had picked the Chiefs, just because that's such a perfect storybook ending. The Titans getting I'm having the Titans in the Super Bowl. I feel like I can just say that already. But, the Titans getting revenge on the Chiefs, that would just be great, like, at home. But, I think the Bills get up here and, I think it's like really kind of a cool story of like, new age, like Vrabel versus, McDermott, right? McDermott.
Yeah.
And, you have this kind of new age, like changing of the guards kind of a match in the AFC title game. And, I think the stage is just too big for Josh Allen, and the Titans are able to like keep a lead. And, once the Titans get once the Titans get in front, it's hard to get Derrick Henry off the ball.
All right, so Ryan is going with the Titans to advance. Well, I shouldn't say I'm not too surprised by that, because I thought I remember you saying something in a group chat once about you really like the Titans. Cory and I are both sticking with our preseason prediction of the Chiefs making it as AFC champions back to the Super Bowl for the third year in a row. Let's now go to the NFC title game. Cory, give us your matchup and who ends up advancing. Rams and Cowboys, who will advance to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, so I have Rams and Cowboys, like you said, and honestly, I got down to this matchup and I was like, I don't feel good about either of these teams. I don't know why I have them both here, but I guess that's sometimes what just happens in the NFL. Teams kind of come out of nowhere. Teams get hot at the right spot, win 3 games and get to a Super Bowl. That happens sometimes. And I think that's what the Rams will do. I think they end, my Cowboys season. Like I said, I don't feel great about this pick, especially with how Matt Stafford has looked at times this year with all those pick sixes and just the the up and down play that he's known to have. But I think he gets enough done with Cooper Kupp, best receiver out there in the game right now. Maybe besides Adams, you can maybe make that argument. But I think Cam Akers back is huge for them, and that adding to the ground game along with Sony Michel. I think, on defense, Jalen Ramsey, and then the best player defensively in the NFL, you can obviously say Watt, but I think Aaron Donald time and time again has done it year after year and shows it play after play. I think just the collection of weapons, the collection of players, and then Sean McVay. I mean, he's a genius over there on the sideline. I think the Rams, despite how up and down they've looked, I think they turn it on come playoff time and they make it to the Super Bowl. So I'm sticking with my Chiefs versus Rams preseason prediction as well.
Yeah, I'm shocked by that, Cory. I really thought you'd pick the Cowboys.
I mean, as much as I would like to, I'm also very worried they're going to lose in the first round to the Niners. So there was kind of that weighing in the back of my mind there.
All right, so Cory is sticking with his preseason prediction, Rams and Chiefs. Ryan, who is in your NFC Championship game matchup and who ends up going to the Super Bowl?
I believe I have the Cheeseheads and the Rams.
That is correct.
So, and I think the Rams are one of those teams where, if they got hot at the right time, like they really could make a run at the Super Bowl because, they have that honestly trio of just insane defenders and, probably the best cornerback. I would honestly like argue a different guy like Jalen Ramsey, the pick he had last week where he just kind of bobbled it to himself and still caught it. Like, it really should have ended the game for him, but he can't play on both sides of the ball. So, I think the Rams have a lot going for them, but I think Aaron Rodgers has waited too long to get back to a Super Bowl. I think, to quote Stephen A., Aaron Rodgers is a bad man, and I think we're going to see Aaron Rodgers in another Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, as great as he is, he's only been to one Super Bowl, and that was, 11 years ago, 2010, when they beat the Steelers. So it seems like it's a long time coming for Aaron Rodgers. I have the Packers and the Bucks. I have a rematch of last year. We all remember that game when, obviously the controversial Matt LaFleur decision to kick a field goal instead of going for a touchdown. You had Scotty Miller coming out of nowhere. No one heard his name all season. He ends up catching the touchdown before the half. So I would have a rematch at Lambeau, and this time I believe the Packers would win that matchup. I just think it's the year of Aaron Rodgers. Everyone was on him earlier in the season when he said he was immunized. He wasn't vaccinated. That was a whole scandal. And, and you look at really guys like Alan Lazard, who has stepped up in the last couple of weeks of the regular season. He could be a guy that really complements Devontae Adams come playoff time. You got Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon in the backfield. I just think this is a complete Packers team, and I think this is the year they finally win in the NFC title game and make it back to the Super Bowl. So I'm going to stick with my preseason prediction, Packers and Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So really interesting, guys, as we preview our hypothetical Super Bowl, we all have different teams in our matchups, different matchups, I should say. So, Cory, you have the Rams and the Chiefs. Again, in the preseason, you picked the Chiefs to win. Are you sticking with Kansas City to win the Super Bowl?
I am. I think with how, like, I've talked about how unsure I was even of the Rams even getting to the Super Bowl, it would be hard for me then to pick them to win the Super Bowl. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I think you look at the team, an kind of spoken thing about the team this year. I was just looking it up, is really they had that loss, mid-season against the Titans where the Titans smacked them around. 27-3 was the final score in that one. And in the games after that, they gave up 17 points, 7 points, 14 points, 9 points, 9 points, 9 points. And down the stretch, they had their struggles against the Bengals, but I think the defense has really stepped up. It was really kind of what got the team going again when they were kind of hit that spurt, downward spurt in the middle of the season. I think the defense shows up in the cold weather, that it would be in just a scenario like this where, everybody's looking at Mahomes and that offense and what they can do. I think the defense comes up big in a game like this. Maybe they do get a pick six against Stafford, like he's been known to throw this year. And I think the Chiefs get it done. Really look at what they've done over the last few years. It would just be, the third year in a row back in the Super Bowl. And I think, second time they win it in 3 years.
So Cory is sticking with his preseason prediction. He has the Chiefs beating the Rams to win the Super Bowl. Ryan, you have the Packers and the Titans. That would be a great matchup as well. Who do you have winning that Super Bowl matchup? Oh, we got Lee Corso here.
Lee Corso.
Let's go Titans.
Is that a Lendell White jersey? I mean, that's a pretty old
Chris Johnson.
No, so I found this at a Goodwill for like $3. I was like, screw it, that's a sweet jersey. But no, I think the Titans are, the number one team in the AFC for a reason, and they managed to do that even without Derrick Henry. I think there's several teams that really could win a Super Bowl. You've got the Chiefs that are, if they can keep Jackson Mahomes in check, could really make a run here. The Packers are obviously a powerhouse, but I just would hate to, bet against the Titans this year. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people, and people are going to look back and be like, what, how did we not see this coming? But, they've been there.
That would certainly make a mutual friend of me and Cory's, Jake Lyman, very proud. He is a Titans fan. So Ryan is going Lee Corso on here and picking the Ryan Tannehill-led Titans to win the Super Bowl. In my matchup, guys, like I said, I had Packers and Chiefs. I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers to win the Super Bowl. I think this is going to be the year of Wisconsin. Remember, the Bucks won the NBA championship. I think the Packers are going to win the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers is going to cement his legacy as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I think it's going to be a shootout. I mean, that was the thing that was really disappointing about the Bucks and Chiefs last year. That was going to be a great offensive matchup. One guy was going to lead his team downfield late to win the game. And really last year was all about the defense. The Bucks defense just destroyed Patrick Mahomes and that Chiefs offensive line. I think this year we're going to get the offensive shootout we've all been waiting for in the Super Bowl for quite some time. I think it's going to be 41-38, something along those lines. Aaron Rodgers is going to get it done late. And I'm going with the Green Bay Packers to win the Super Bowl for the first time since 2010. Bring the Lombardi Trophy home, because remember, Vince Lombardi was the Packers coach back when they won the first two Super Bowls. So there you have it. I'm going Packers. Cory is going with the Chiefs, and Ryan, wearing the old CJ2K jersey, is going with the Tennessee Titans. So very excited, guys, to see what happens in this playoffs. I'm sure we're all going to get some picks wrong, but very excited to see what happens. Starting with the wild card weekend, I think it's going to be fun. And I wanted to ask this, guys, before I transition to our fantasy football talk is, Ryan, I'll start with you first. Give me one team that you think, maybe they might not win the Super Bowl necessarily, but you think, man, this team, one and done format in the NFL playoffs, they could go a long way.
And that's why it's so hard, because I really think there's 4 teams this year that just look very, very good and like really could make a run. Like you said, like it's one game. The Packers could go out there and maybe Aaron Rodgers throws an uncharacteristic pick, and then the special teams gives up a punt return, and then like that's just like they did last year. You got Scotty Miller 50 yards for a touchdown, and the game's over. But I think a team that I'd be, scared to face, honestly, like I picked the Bengals to lose first game, but I think that's one of those teams that, if I am overthinking this, I mean, they beat the Chiefs very recently. they could really hang, 40 points on anyone. I mean, Jamar Chase, like, looks insane, and he might not even be the best wide receiver on his team. Not to speak, blasphemy over it, but there's a lot of really good wide receivers there. Joe Mixon looks good at times. I don't really want to talk about their defense, but their offense can certainly hang some points on people. So, I think, if they get hot and Joe Burrow starts feeling good, I mean, look for them to win a couple of games and start getting scary.
Cory, who's your sleeper team? Again, a team, maybe they might not necessarily win the Super Bowl, but again, in a one and done, win or go home NFL playoff format, they could make some noise.
Yeah, and it's a team like Ryan. Like, he had the Bengals losing in the first round. I have the Niners losing in the first round to my Cowboys, but I'm nervous. I'm extremely nervous going into that game. I think with all the weapons that they have, Deebo Samuel, I think he's puts the most fear of like any defensive coordinator in the NFL nowadays, with just all the different types of things he can do. He's even throwing touchdown passes now like he did last week. I mean, that just adds another dimension. And, George Kittle is a bad man. You put him on the outside, you get him going down the sideline with some fierceness that just runs through his veins. I mean, like I even said in my kind of breakdown of the game, I think it comes down to Jimmy G and what he does or doesn't do for this Niners team to go forward. I think they have all the pieces in place other than the quarterback position. So if he really, shows up and manages the game well and doesn't make the big mistakes, I think they could go on a deep run.
Cory took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to go with the 49ers guys. They basically have the same team that was up 10 on the Chiefs in the fourth quarter of that Super Bowl, and probably should have won that Super Bowl. Like Cory mentioned, I mean, Jimmy G, he's going to be the X factor. Can he kind of step up to playoff form here and really pull through for the Niners? But I think, honestly, I mean, they're the team that made it to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. I think they could easily go on a run here. Again, I'm picking them to beat the Cowboys, but you should definitely watch out for the 49ers. And again, I mean, people forget George Kittle was hurt so long. We forget he was one of the best tight ends. I mean, right there with Kelsey when he was healthy, and he's back. He's a bad man. I think you got to watch out for the 49ers starting this weekend against the Cowboys. So really great discussion on the playoffs, guys. Again, this weekend is going to be so high. Games Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, the first ever Super Wildcard weekend. And very excited to see what happens. Like I said, we'll probably get some picks wrong, but we'll see if who ends up being right with the Super Bowl here. So I'm going with the Packers, Ryan going with the Titans, Cory is going with the Chiefs to wrap up that discussion. Let's now transition, guys, to fantasy football. Of course, this is something that a lot of NFL fans like during the regular season. And me, Cory, and Ryan we're really blessed to be in a really hardcore fantasy league led by our friend Jonah, who's actually also been on the podcast before. I'm actually also talking to the last two champions in our fantasy football league. Cory won last year. Ryan won this year for the second time in 3 years. And the other year since I've been in the league, I've been in the league 3 years now. I think Cory too as well. The 1 year Ryan didn't win, he was in the semifinal. So there just seems to be a method to the madness with Ryan. And I want to go to you with that. Talk to us about what goes into your mind when putting together your NFL fantasy team. I mean, because, you were also, if I remember correctly, in our 12-team league, you drafted 12th. So you did get the back-to-back picks, but I think you showed it really doesn't matter where you draft. You can still end up winning the championship. So what's kind of your method to the madness when you're trying to figure out who you're going to draft on a team? I mean, do you do a lot of prep? I mean, what's kind of your offseason or even just a couple of days leading up to the draft? What do you do to decide how you pick your team?
Yeah, I also want to mention my season last year was cut short by Jalen Hurts scoring like 40 points. So that has me forever hating him also as a division rival. But I think like the and this sounds so dumb, but I think the key for like all fantasy drafts is just finding value like where you're at. I think the year before I drafted like second or third, so just kind of different spots. And I guess this year, like, I feel like, so I always try to like, kind of like rank players and stack them like per position, and then kind of like figure out like where I like players like, against like one another, like wide receivers versus running backs and stuff, and like which ones I like better. But, I think it all comes down to taking value. I did several mock drafts before and kind of saw where the players would fall, like drafting 12th. And, I just in that position, I think I ended up going like running back, quarterback. And, because there just, to me, wasn't really enough value there elsewhere. And, I thought I could get value at wide receiver further down in the draft that year. And, it's always hit or miss because, I don't think anyone should expect to always get, the NFL, I don't want to call him the MVP, but he definitely could have been the fantasy MVP in Cooper Kupp. And I drafted him in maybe the 6th round, very late. And when you get a guy like that, like it's easy to seem like a genius when, I don't want to say I'm not doing anything right, but you can't expect Cooper Kupp to pop off like that. I was just adding him as like a wide receiver 1.
And Corey, I was going to ask you too, because in our league, it's unique compared to other leagues where we have a super flex. A lot of times guys will play another quarterback in that super flex. Does that change the mentality of your draft? I mean, in other maybe traditional leagues, people would say you got to draft the running backs first because there's only a handful that are really considered elite. But in our league with the 2 quarterbacks, is that something you kind of think about when you're drafting? Like, man, I really got to get 2 quarterbacks off the board here, so I know I'm going to be set at that position all season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big thing is quarterbacks have way more value in a super flex league than they do in just a standard league. Like, you'd be crazy to pick a quarterback in, the first 3 rounds, even in a standard league, whereas, quarterbacks are going off in the first round and in a super flex league. And that was even my strategy when I won it 2 years ago, is I went quarterback in the first 2 rounds, ended up getting Lamar and Russell Wilson 2 years ago. And that was my strategy. It was just like, man, I know this is perhaps the most important position in this league. I'm just going to stack up on, I think that was like the number 1 and number 3 quarterbacks off the board that year. So I think it creates a different draft strategy than a normal standard league. And there's a lot of different things. Like, obviously, if I was like the 1st or 2nd pick, I wouldn't have done that. But I was, pick number 9 towards the end of the draft, where that kind of worked out and fell that way, where I wasn't going to get an elite running back at the top.
Yeah, I'm taking notes from 2 champions here. I won the losers bracket this year, so I can say I'm a champion of losers. But at least I'm honest. Like, I still maintain though, if Derrick Henry did not get hurt, I would have at least made the playoffs. And you never know what can happen. And actually, I want to go to you about that, Ryan, because I know we've had this conversation before. But talking about the role of luck in terms of fantasy, and obviously I see a guy like you who's been very successful in our league. You've made the semifinals in the 3 years at least that I've been in the league. What role do you think luck plays, if at all? Because again, I think you can have all the skill, you can draft, a really good team, but again, I mean, you can't control a guy like Derrick Henry getting hurt or some fluke injury happen, or even if you've got a running back that splits carries, all of a sudden another running back gets the touchdown at the goal line instead of the guy that you had that was carrying the team throughout the whole drive. So as a guy who seems to have gotten pretty good at drafting good fantasy teams, do you think luck plays any role in drafting a good fantasy team and having a successful season?
I mean, naturally it has some role, because, I every year I can't always expect to have Cooper Kupp there. And I think 3 years ago when I won, I will say, like, I drafted Lamar as like my first QB in like the 10th round or something 3 years ago. And, when you have the NFL MVP that late, like, you're going to do very well. I think a lot of like luck is, because it's easy to like focus on the first 4 rounds because that like really sets the foundation of your team. But, I think a lot of, getting the breaks the way you like, getting things to break your way is like having very, good quality picks, like in the, 6th through 10th round, where like there are very, very good players. And some people I think tend to kind of slack off when like, you can grab a guy like Cooper Kupp there. And if you have several players deep and not just the normal starters that are chalk, but you can also get a guy like I think last year I got Deontay Johnson like very late, and when you can get a guy like that who's a wide receiver 2 or whatever, and at the end of the round, it allows you to like kind of be flexible and play around with your roster. And then if you lose a guy, yeah, like maybe you lose Devontae Adams or something, but if you have a guy like Deontay Johnson you just picked up for free, it really allows you to not make one injury too devastating. But then you have last year, like with Jonah, where he had 3, running back 1s, and all of them went down the same week. And you just have to laugh at that because you just can't do anything.
And Corey, this is a question I want both of you guys to answer. But in a 12-team league, Corey, is there like an ideal place that you want to draft? I mean, you'd rather draft number 1 overall? Would you rather draft 12th and get those 2 picks like Ryan did, and I believe you did too last year? I mean, and you get those 2 picks back to back. I mean, what's kind of your ideal spot you would like to draft it in a 12-team league?
I don't know. I think because let's see, this year I was first pick, and that was doomed by picking CMC and having him out, Mr. Injury Bug himself. So I had that back-to-back picks. And I don't know, I'm kind of torn. I think I do like more towards not like in the middle, like a 6 or 7, but either like a 3 or like a 9. I kind of like in that range, one of those two, where you're kind of towards the end, so you don't have a huge turnaround, and you can kind of get picks somewhat back to back, but you're also getting kind of good value either at the end or the beginning of rounds. I think I kind of like in that range. And another thing I would add on to say to Ryan's kind of comments about luck, I think a lot of it is even luck through waiver wire ads. A lot of that is kind of dumb luck. I picked up Cordarrelle Patterson this year in week 2, and he goes off to be, a top 10 running back this year. And who would have thought that? I paid, 0 fab for him. Another one, he was pretty much the league winner for me last year, other than, Stephon Diggs going off and at the end in that Monday night game. But, JD McKissick was a guy I picked up late in that season and plug and played him. And, with Alex Smith getting the job late in that season, he was just dunking it off to JD McKissick 8-9 times a game, and he became my running back. So I think there is even a lot of luck in the waiver wire ads that you have as well.
Ryan, do you have an ideal spot you'd like to draft? Like you mentioned, you drafted 3rd or 4th last year, and then this year you were number 12. I like kind of the 4th pick because typically there's really only 4 or 5 running backs that are like really elite and they stand out from everyone else. So I like getting the 4th pick because you get one of those 4, and then you beat the other 3 picks to getting, the second best player. I just kind of think of it in that type of mentality. What about you? Do you think there's an ideal spot to draft in the draft?
I mean, after this past year, I think it's number 12. But I think the biggest like mistake in fantasy is getting locked into like one way of drafting. And I think, depending on your pick, you kind of have to switch it up. Like, if you have more of a middle pick, like a 6 or 7, I think you have to be more flexible and just take, value like as you see ADP. And, versus like when you have more of like an end pick, I think you need to focus more on like roster construction because you have 20 picks in between picks. So you can't, so this past year I had to focus on that because if I didn't get a quarterback and a running back, like the ways until the next pick, like I was just totally screwed. But if I took 2 running backs back to back, it was like, okay, I'm getting, Eckler, who turned out to be really good, and like Montgomery or something. And I was actually able to pick him up on the next turn. So, a lot of playing around like that, but I mean, it really is all, I think, just kind of a mindset. And if you get good players and get value where you're at, I don't really think any pick is a death sentence or any pick is that much better than the other,
And Cory, I guess last question before we sign off. Are you going to get Ryan his trophy? I mean, y'all got to figure out how you're going to mail him the trophy because, now we start a new tradition where the winner gets a trophy and you got to mail it to the next guy, if you don't repeat. So what's that? I mean, you got to give it to him at some point.
Yeah, we got to figure out whether it's I'm coming back home to Richmond first or he's coming back to Blacksburg here at some point. We'll have to figure that out and transfer the trophy to him. It's gonna leave an empty spot in my office for sure. I've enjoyed having that on my desk there. It definitely is a conversation starter when people come in.
And Ryan, of course, thank you so much for joining us, man. Obviously, great talking about you because you're very astute with fantasy and sports, and then with the spreads and everything. Really appreciate you coming on and the Dining League Corso for us, and hope you had a fun time and hope we have you back here soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was honestly really fun. So best of luck on your guys' podcast, and hope this pops like an ESPN show pretty soon.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll see about that. And Cory, obviously, NFL playoffs started this weekend. Very exciting. And of course, so we'll see what happens with your Cowboys if they can start it off with the win against the Niners.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Let's go, baby.
All right. Well, thank you so much to everybody for joining us on the latest edition of Real Talk with Billy and Cory. Once again, thank you to our special guest, Ryan Johns, for joining us, making our NFL playoff picks. For my podcast partner, Uncle Cornelius Michael, Cory Van Dyke, I'm Hot Take Billy Parvatam on hand. Thanks to everybody for joining us. We'll see you next time. Love you 3000.